I speak to a lot of people on my travels, and I hear so many people saying, oh, this younger generation, oh my goodness me, we are in trouble because all they want to do is be on their phones. But I can tell you that I have such hope for them, because there are a lot of amazing kids and their capacity is incredible. I think often the stumbling block is the adult. It is, the way we are working with kids. Children they don't love it openly and verbally, but boundaries are something that are so important for them, because it gives them some channel to move through and feel safe in. And I think if we can give kids these, and anchoring, give them these boundaries, my goodness me, I think that they are capable of doing amazing things. But here's something fascinating. I had the privilege of speaking at a boot camp, actually near where you are in San Antonio, and it's for kids who've done pretty bad crimes, and it's a military boot camp. Basically, they have to run around, they get their hair buzzed, they get up at 5 a.m, and they have to do push-ups and what have you. It's a real it's a tough place, and kids normally just go there for a year. But I found out that, and this is a big word for a dyslexic to say, the recidivism rate, the rate that kids return to that facility, is between 68 and 72%. Why would you think a child who's going through that boot camp and that terrible, difficult situation would do another crime to go back? And here's the interesting thing. When they are there, they wake up at 5 o'clock, it's guaranteed. They get breakfast at a certain time, it's guaranteed. They can trust what is going on every day. And because sometimes at their home there are no boundaries, there's nothing for them to anchor onto, it's so hard to grow up and learn and go to school when you are actually trying to sail the ship that's leaning over and there's nowhere to dock and nowhere to anchor on. So, I think that's one of the really important things for adults to realize, for parents to realize, is that this channel, these boundaries, this connection where kids can anchor onto is so vitally important to them. They will never admit it. They will never agree, but it's important. We sugarcoat information for kids because we think they can't cope. So sometimes we will lie to them about something they know is the truth, because we're trying to protect them, to protect their emotions. And I have found in my work, especially with kids who are ill, and also kids in orphanages, that honesty with them, obviously it's selective in terms of what we want to say, but letting them know that we're coming from an honest place opens up channels of communication amazingly. Well, I think one of the biggest things that plays against us, one of the biggest enemies, is ourselves, because our fear of failure in terms of rearing a child is always sitting there. Because and I can tell you, and I need to be, I'm always honest, and I need to be transparent here. I forgot to have kids. I was so busy working with other kids, but I have had a stepchild. I have taken care of many kids. I have an invisible imaginary daughter. I have kids who are part of my TV series who are not real, but in my heart. But what I've learned, and even as a person who champions for children, is that our fear of failing those kids sometimes paralyzes us. We are so scared to make the wrong decisions or say the wrong things and damage our children for life. But there is no IKEA workbook that we can go through and say, oh, okay, here's the manual. If a child does this, I've got to do this. But I think what I've experienced in talking to child psychologists and a lot of psychiatrists as I've been going through the years of working with kids is that we really need to listen to our intuition, because it works very well when we listen to it. We often second guess and third guess, but that first intuition is normally right. And I've known this with so many people who have been in a situation where they don't want their children to hate them.
Mhm.
So they are very, very, they're very lax sometimes in the way they are offering that channel, that border, that to be able to contain the kids, and then it overflows, and it's very hard to get them back when you have been in that situation. So my answer often to parents is listen to it, because when I watched some baby elephants romping around and then getting a little out of hand, and that mama elephant comes with that trunk and slaps it on the backside and is like, you get back in line. In nature, it's the same thing with even lion cubs. They will have a good time, but when they start getting a little bit too rowdy, here comes mama, puts him back in line. And I think that's what children are expecting of us from deep within. Obviously, they want to get away with anything they can, but that I think we really sometimes get ourselves in trouble by confusing ourselves with what we think should be done, or listening to somebody who said something and it doesn't apply to our child or to the type of situation we're in, because obviously each child is different and every situation is different, and there's no homogenized way of doing it. Don't say, I understand what you're going through. Don't say, I know how you feel. Don't say, I went through exactly the same thing. And certainly don't say, it's no big deal. Because again, what we're doing is not validating what that child is feeling. So what we do say is, I've experienced something similar. Or can I share something that you may understand? Or I don't know how you feel, but I have a pretty good idea. And one of the things that I ask parents to do when they are sometimes in a tough situation is relay a story from when you were that age that shows that you are in tune with what they are experiencing, instead of trying to fix it for them. Let them know that, wow, that person does know how I feel. Children know what they see, and that's how they learn. And sometimes when a woman asked me the other day, she said, how can I get my child to read? My child just never reads. I said, do you read? And she goes, no, I haven't got time. I'm like, oh, okay. You're modeling.
Yeah.
And he was consistent. I think that thing too. When he said, we are not going to do this if you do that, he stuck to it. Many parents that I know, they say, we are not going to the movies on Saturday if you do that. They want to go to the movies, and then you go to the movies. So if that is a consequence that is not trusted, why would you go through with it? So, and my dad, the late great Trevor Romain, he was very consistent in his in the way he brought us up. I think most of the time, us adults tell kids what we think they need to hear instead of listening to what they're asking for. And I said that right up front. And to me, that's one of the most important things, because so often children don't know how to articulate what they are needing. And we will just bowl them over. And what do we say? It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Do we really believe that if we tell a kid it's going to be okay, that it's going to be okay? No, what it does is it makes us feel like we've done something, like, oh, I've done something. But that leaves the child empty and lonely and not heard. And they will go away often feeling really sad, because whatever was really worrying them or traumatizing them was brushed aside by somebody saying it's going to be okay, don't worry. You can't stop worrying if someone tells you don't worry. And so basically what we have to do is validate those feelings. And so sometimes we get impatient with them. One of the things that I share often with children is, and especially when I see that their parents are really maybe having a bad day, I said, what you need to tell your mom or dad sometime, that their record of getting through a bad day is 100% because they're still around. So don't take your bad day out on me. I think so often we talk negatively to our kids, right? We're like, you know, if you don't clean up your room, you're not going to get this. Or before you go to school, go and you go and clean up your room, or don't leave your room dirty. Instead of, we could switch it up a little bit and say things like, would you mind tidying up your room before you leave? And sort of almost doing it as an invite as opposed to just getting that anger. Because I think children have this built-in thing that the minute they feel that aggression, man, they shut off and they want to do the opposite. And I even though I can't see everybody out there, but I'm seeing nodding heads because that's what they'll do. So sometimes reframing things is really helpful. So often we say to kids, go do your homework, get this done, get that done, get this done, get your chores done. And we're sitting and watching Netflix while that's happening. And one of the things that I've been suggesting to parents is, and especially at kids like in elementary school or maybe even middle, to be able to say, hey, let's go and do our homework. So you go and do your taxes at that time, or the stuff you've been procrastinating about, or that letter that you've been meaning to write, and setting up that space where you can sit down and actually maybe do it together. Which really then helps the child feel like they are, part of a team, as opposed to a coach telling them, what to do all the time. To be able to say that, to be able to involve children in decision making, like my dad did with me, I think that really goes a long way also in terms of helping the child feel like they are, part of that connection. So that and that changing direction, to be able to sit down and say, okay, guys, well, we got a family meeting. We've decided to do this. What's your opinion? And even if the opinion isn't something that is going to be one that's taken up or anything, I think it really it again gives the child some ownership in the teamwork of a family. And when you are in a team, you often don't want to let down the team members. When you are angry at the coach, you are going to do anything to make that coach unhappy. Well, there is a difference between discipline and punishment. Discipline comes from the word disciple, to teach, and punishment comes from you being really angry and frustrated, and man, you just get in that corner and I don't want to see you again for the rest of the day. Discipline is a great opportunity to teach. The problem often happens is that there's no follow through with the discipline, because it's like, okay, we are not going to do this. And then, as I said earlier, if that's not followed through, then the trust is broken that discipline, is not being effective. And then, I can go and do something I'm not supposed to do, and it's not going to make a difference because they're going to forget, or they are not going to continue with it. So I think one of the things that I did want to mention today, because I've been doing a little bit of research on it, is that I've obviously been speaking to a lot of kids who go through being depressed, go through sad. Many kids have been bullied. I wrote a book called Bullying is a Pain in the Brain, and interviewed hundreds of bullies and kids who are bullied, and did find out that a lot of those kids obviously were sad. And what I've shared with those kids, and this is unbelievable, and hopefully one day I can come back and tell you that story, but when children are kind to somebody else, when they volunteer, when they do things in the community, even if they're feeling sad, it gives their life more value. It gives them a purpose. And to be able to do this as a family, whether it's a food pantry, whether it's just picking up litter, that's such a great way to be able to have that giving together, which then forms camaraderie and opens doors to discuss some pretty heavy stuff. There are three things that I really like to leave with with parents or caregivers of children, or anybody who's with children. And the first thing is make space for that child to be able to connect with you. Put the phone down. That the best gift you can ever give a child in this world is time without a phone. Kids would say that they will remember that more than they remember a trip to Disneyland or a gift. So make that space. Number two, listen to what kids are asking for instead of telling them what you think they need to hear. Because sometimes just that ear will help them change what they need to go through to be able to navigate something that's tough. And number three, validate their feelings. Listen and validate and even repeat back to them, saying, oh, I hear that you are really sad. And by acknowledging their feelings and validating them, that is letting the child know that they're being heard and that they're being respected. Because when a child feels respected, they open up and they will share the information and tough things that they are going through.